Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just welcoming all of you guys. Sawadee-kap. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is what's referred to as our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what this is later. We start our class with a meditation, so I'll guide you guys in meditation and invite you to join for a meditation if you'd like. What we do to start our meditation is we start with chanting to ease into the meditation. If you guys would like to chant along with me, you're welcome to. We have chants over there on the table. There's a sheet that you can get and it'll show you the chants that we actually chant before the meditation and after the meditation. The meditation is designed to help you train your mind and move the mind to the enlightened mental state where the mind can be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy permanently. You need other things besides meditation to be able to get to enlightenment. But meditation is an important aspect of getting the mind to enlightenment. So that's why we start our classes with meditation to help you guys learn meditation and train your mind. So I'm going to start with these chants to ease us into the meditation. It's important to understand that these chants aren't anything mystical or magical. It's not a prayer or worship or anything like that. It's not a rite or ritual or ceremony. What the chants are used for during the lifetime of the Buddha was that he would teach orally, where everything he taught was spoken, and then they would use the chanting every 2 weeks in order to commit the teachings to memory so they could remember what he taught. So every 2 weeks they would recite his teachings orally so that it could help them to commit it to their memory. So that's what they use chanting for during the lifetime of the Buddha. Today we don't need chanting in order to commit the teachings to memory. We have books and videos and podcasts and audiobooks and things like this to be able to capture the teachings that we don't need to chant them in order to remember them. So if you'd like to chant, you're welcome to, because the reason why I chant is because it helps to develop concentration and awareness of mind, and it helps to ease the mind into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So anytime you guys would like to get one of those sheets, if you'd like to chant along, you're welcome to help yourself and get one, because you'll see the Pali chants and then you'll see the English translations as well, because the original teachings of the Buddha are captured in the Pali language, so we chant in the Pali language. And then you'll see the English translations as well. If you see the English translations, you're going to see a lot of admiration and gratitude and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think that the Buddha actually created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death, because the Buddha doesn't walk around and say, here, chant these things to me so that you can respect me. This would be ego and arrogance, and he wouldn't have done that. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and the sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings to this mental state that is peaceful and calm and serene and content with joy, where you no longer experience any of those discontent feelings, and he didn't want anything from you, he didn't expect anything from you, you probably have a lot of gratitude and respect and appreciation for that person too. So these people, I suspect, created these chants either during his life or after his death because of their appreciation and gratitude and respect for the Buddha. So after the chanting, I'm going to provide some guidance, and I'm going to be speaking as we're meditating. You hear me speaking and guiding you and instructing you in the meditation. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet. We're just all meditating together. Everyone here at the temple and those of you guys online, we'll just all be meditating at the same time. Then afterwards, we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start the class, and I'll explain to you what the Pali Canon and English study group is. If this is your first time meditating, or even if you've been meditating before, I'll give you a little bit of guidance on your body position, because this can help you to learn meditation. There's 4 different positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you use these different positions at different times for different reasons. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'll give you guys guidance on the seated position. You can either be sitting on the floor or a chair, a bench, a sofa. You might be in a wheelchair if you're at home or anything like that. You can be sitting anywhere. And this is oftentimes a primary position that somebody will learn in, because it's very easily accessible to most people. If you're on the floor, you usually sit with a cushion or more under your rear, and you might just cross your legs lightly. If you cross them real tight, this will impede the circulation and it could cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So this will allow the circulation to flow as well. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way, because some people are going to find this comfortable and some people may not. So there's other options as well. You might decide to put your palms on your thighs or on your knees. Some people like to put their palms up or just rest their hands comfortably in their lap. And it's the same thing for anybody who's sitting on a chair or a bench or sofa or wheelchair. You can just make your lower body comfortable in your hands and arms as well. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or cross at the ankles, but it's really up to you. You can sit however you like. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation so that you can actively train the mind. It also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, because with your sternum up and your shoulders back, it'll make it easier for you to breathe, and it'll keep your mind more attentive and alert during the meditation so that you can actively train the mind. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, and then I'm going to come back in with some guidance to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanhang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะวาพุทธังมหะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหะวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสัคขะโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation, I'd like to once again welcome everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Welcome to all of you here. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. As I mentioned, today is our Pali Canon and English study group where we study the original words of the Buddha as more of a study group, where I have other programs and other courses that will help you build a foundation in the path to enlightenment. This program is a program that people usually move into after they've already established a foundation. If you're looking to have kind of an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha, this afternoon at 1 o'clock, I'm going to be sharing an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha. It's about a 2 or 3 hour class where you can learn kind of from afar, kind of introduced to the teachings of the Buddha and understand a little bit about his teachings. So you're welcome to come to that if you'd like. And then on Sundays and Wednesdays, I have regular classes where I walk you through this book. This is the first book of our book series. It's called Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. And each Sunday, I walk you through chapter by chapter over a 7-month period, helping students to be able to develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment. And this program is really great for people who are just starting out, that you can gradually learn little by little each Sunday and each Wednesday. I teach it here, and I also teach online because I live stream the classes at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. You can join, so you can decide for yourself whatever time zone you're in. There should be a live class available for you, either at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. And if you can't make the live class, it's recorded so that you'll be able to learn in the actual live class. And these books, they're available for you for free. You can get them on our website by downloading them for free. You can take it and go print it if you like. You can get printed copies here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon if you'd like to order it on Amazon. That way you can gradually learn the teachings of the Buddha, because what the teachings do for you is it helps you to get to this enlightened mental state where your mind can be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the mind. You'll notice that there's focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Your personal, professional relationships will really improve. They'll really blossom. They'll be at ease because you won't be bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships right as you might be right now. You might find it very challenging to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in all your relationships, but as you train your mind more and more, you'll be able to do that, and you'll have wonderful relationships in the world, where right now maybe you have some relationships that are kind of strained and it's kind of difficult for you in those relationships. So you can get to a point where you don't even have a bad mood anymore. You eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing this. Oftentimes people think the thing that's causing your mind to be angry or sad or frustrated is something external. You might be blaming other people for the feelings that you experience, but what the Buddha helps you to be able to see is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And when you can uncover this and you can see the truth for yourself that your mind is causing these feelings, the beauty is that you can eliminate them. If it's everybody else that's causing you to be angry and sad and frustrated, that means you need to train the entire world to do things your way, because you can only be happy when things are happening the way you want them to happen. But if you can train your mind, which is just one mind, that's going to be challenging enough. You can actually get to liberation. You can get to freedom. You can get to the point where your mind is no longer angry or sad or frustrated or not even in a bad mood anymore. So what you do is, yes, meditation is part of that, but another part of that is learning the teachings so that you can actively train your mind. The Buddha teaches you in a way that you can learn and examine his teachings. You can reflect on them to independently verify them, and then you can practice them, integrating them into your life and training your mind more and more and more. The teachings of the Buddha aren't about a bunch of beliefs. You're not believing a bunch of things and hoping that something good happens when you die. It's not about rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship. It's not about rules or commandments or anything like that. Even though there's people out there doing those kinds of things and calling it Buddhism, it's actually not what the Buddha taught. When you go back to his original teachings, you can see that what he taught you is about these pollutions that are in your mind. And when you learn about these pollutions, you can uproot them and eliminate them out of the mind through the tools and techniques that he provides you. And as you're doing this, you'll see that the mind's becoming more peaceful and more joyful because you're getting rid of these pollutions that are plaguing the mind and hindering it from experiencing enlightenment. So while all of our foundational classes, courses, and retreats, I build students up from the very beginning and kind of walk them through developing a practice in a more traditional way of learning, where I'll teach for about 20 or 30 minutes, and then I'll open up to questions. Then I teach another 20 or 30 minutes and open up to questions. That's what I do in all the foundational programs. But this program, I don't do it that way. On Saturdays, what we do is it's more of a study group. So I'll explain to you guys what that is. That we have these books. We have volume 1, which is the foundational text, but then we have volumes 2 through 13. And now we're in volume 3 of this particular book series, that each week we go chapter by chapter, and I help students to be able to learn the original words of the Buddha. And this is from what's called the Pali Canon. The Pali Canon is the original source teachings of the Buddha. It's 45 volumes of books that are about this thick, and this is the largest, most complete collection we have of the teachings of the Buddha. Those have been translated over into English, and we've consolidated it so that now in this 13-book series, you can gather all the teachings that you need in order to move the mind to enlightenment. You're going to need help from a teacher. You can't do it by yourself, but you can get help because it's available to you at no cost. All the books, all the classes and courses, retreats, even personal guidance, the audiobooks, the videos and podcasts, everything's available for you. All you need to do is provide the dedication and the diligence and the determination. And if if you put some effort into learning and practicing, you can transform your mind, and thus you're going to transform your life. If you can imagine all the time that you would have when you're no longer being angry and sad and frustrated, you're going to get so much more enjoyment out of life this way. So what we do in this program is we study these chapters so that students can learn the original words of the Buddha. And it really helps to have a foundation. But even if this is your first time coming to a temple to learn the teachings of the Buddha, you'll definitely get benefit out of what I share with you today. But just understand that oftentimes students are learning in a foundational program before they come into this program. So the way that we do this is I have these chapters here that is from volume 3. We're in chapters 21 through 30 this week. And what I do is I invite someone here at the temple or online through Zoom. You guys can volunteer to read these chapters. This chapter, you can see, it's just a short, comes down to this line. You've got the words of the Buddha here. You've got a reference back to the original Pali Canon, so you can see that it comes from his original teachings. And then you've got words from me to help you reflect on this and understand how to integrate it into your teachings from a dedicated practitioner and teacher. You can see those words there. But what we do in the class is we read the words of the Buddha, which is starting up here. And if you would like to volunteer to read here at the temple, we have microphones here. Pat is showing you where the microphones are in that white bowl. All you need to do is get a microphone and raise your hand and let me know that you're interested in reading. All you do is you press the gray button on the microphone. The lights come on. You just wait a second or two, hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well so that everyone can participate in the program and in the class. And if you're in Zoom and you would like to volunteer to read, all you need to do is electronically raise your hand. I'll see that, and then you can open up your microphone and we'll hear you here at the temple, and we'll be able to hear you through the live stream as well. And then after somebody reads this chapter, I will share a little bit of teachings on that and helping you guys to understand the chapter in more detail. Even though the Buddha teaches very clear, very concise, and very precise, it helps to have a dedicated practitioner and teacher to kind of walk you through his teachings so that you can learn them. And remember, you're learning, you're reflecting to independently verify, and you're practicing. And then after I teach a little bit, for maybe 5 minutes on each little chapter, then I'm going to open up to any and all questions that you guys have. Either here at the temple or online, you guys can ask any questions that you like. Again, here at the temple, if you ask questions, if you use a microphone, everybody will be able to hear you here and online as well. And those of you guys in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can ask questions by putting that into the comment section, or you can electronically raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So I happen to see Pat get the microphone first. I see Chris, you volunteered as well. Maybe you can take the second chapter. But Pat, if you'd like to go ahead and take this first one, that'd be great.
Chapter 21. Gain, honor, and praise are an obstacle even for an arahant. Monks, gain, honor, and praise, I say, are an obstacle even for a monk who is an arahant, one with taints destroyed. When this was said, the Venerable Ananda asked the master teacher Gotama, "Why, Venerable Sir, are gain, honor, and praise an obstacle even for a monk with taints destroyed?" I do not say, Ananda, that gain, honor, and praise are an obstacle to his unshakable liberation of mind, but I say they are an obstacle to his attainment of those peaceful dwellings in the very life which are achieved by one who resides diligent, dedicated, and determined. So dreadful, Ananda, are gain, honor, and praise so bitter, vile, obstructive to achieving the unsurpassed security from bondage, enlightenment. Therefore, Ananda, you should train yourselves thus. We will abandon the arisen gain, honor, praise, and we will not let the arisen gain, honor, and praise persist, obsessing our mind. Thus, you should train yourselves.
Okay, thank you, sir. So remember, as I mentioned, what the Buddha is teaching you all throughout his teachings is he's teaching you certain pollutions that are in your mind that are going to hinder you from experiencing enlightenment. This peace and calm, serenity, the contentedness and joy, the elimination of those discontent feelings, the mind performing optimally where there's focus, concentration, clarity of mind, deep memory, and all the other benefits that are associated with enlightenment. So here, what he's pointing out is this conceit, this arrogance and pride, this measuring and comparing others, this boastfulness. When you walk out into the world and you're acting in that way, people are going to push you aside, right? Because you're acting arrogant and boastful and egotistical. You're going to need to dissolve and eliminate that ego from the mind, where you can be humble and down to earth and just see yourself as a normal person just like everybody else. But what the conceit is going to want to do is your mind's going to want to put yourself above people and look down on them, or it's going to want to put yourself below people and you look up to people with such admiration, you're shaken up when you're around them. By the time you get to enlightenment, your mind's completely steady and stable. It's very peaceful. It's unshakable. But if your mind is putting yourself below somebody, like say your boss, you might be shaken up when you're around your boss, and now you can't really perform at work very well because your mind's shaken up. Or maybe you're around a celebrity or a politician or something and you're all shaken up around this person. But also what your mind will do if you're putting yourself below people is you'll put yourself above people as well. And you'll talk down to people and you'll look down on others thinking that you're so great and you're so wonderful or you're special, right? And this is very detrimental to your mind. So the Buddha's pointing this out, that people are going to praise you. People are going to have this honor and gain. They're going to talk to you in ways that is very complimentary. And when people compliment you, you might get certain amount of arrogance or certain pride. If someone says, wow, you're so beautiful, or you're so handsome, or oh, you're so kind, you're so friendly, or oh, you're such a loving person, or wow, your job is an amazing job. You might get kind of conceitful and boastful and arrogant and prideful. And what the Buddha is saying is when these things are happening, remain humble and down to earth. Okay, so here the way he's saying this, he's saying, monks, gain honor and praise, I say, are an obstacle even for a monk who is an arahant, one with taints destroyed. What an arahant is an enlightened being. This is how they refer to an enlightened being during the lifetime of the Buddha, someone who's eliminated all their pollutions of mind. That's what he's saying, one with taints destroyed. The taints are the pollutions. So he's saying, gain honor and praise, this conceit, is an obstacle even for an enlightened being, one who's completely purified their mind. And now one of his close students, Ananda, is saying essentially, hold on, Mr. Buddha, what do you mean? This person's already enlightened. Why would, this gain honor and praise be an obstacle for him? He's already enlightened. Why would this be a problem for him, right? He says, Master Teacher Gotama, why, Venerable Sir, are gain honor and praise an obstacle even for a monk with taints destroyed? Ananda's a little bit confused. He's like, hold on a second. If someone's enlightened, then gain honor and praise wouldn't be an obstacle for them because their mind would already be humble. They would have already gotten rid of their conceit. And then the Buddha says, I do not say, Ananda, that gain honor and praise are an obstacle to his unshakable liberation of mind. What he's saying is, once you're enlightened, gain honor and praise isn't an obstacle for you. Your mind is unshakable at that point. But I say they are an obstacle to his attainment of, right? So his attainment of enlightenment, for an individual to get to enlightenment, conceit is a obstacle, and you need to overcome this obstacle. And that's what the Buddha is saying, is that it's an obstacle to those peaceful dwellings in this very life which are achieved by one who resides diligent, dedicated, and determined. Because that's what you're going to need to do in order to get to enlightenment. It's going to be a consistent, long-term dedication, determination, and diligence. You can't get to enlightenment in 1 week or 1 month or even 1 year. It took the Buddha 6 years. So it's going to take you some time. So you're going to need to remain dedicated, determined, and diligent over a consistent, long-term period. The Buddha here is saying, so dreadful, Ananda, are gain honor and praise, so bitter, vile, and obstructive to achieving the unsurpassed security from bondage or enlightenment. Because once your mind's enlightened, your mind's secure. It's no longer shaken up. That your mind can't be affected by outside things. There's just nothing that's ever going to shake it up because you've purified the mind. So he's saying that this gain, honor, and praise are an obstacle to attaining enlightenment. Therefore, Ananda, you should train yourselves thus. We will abandon the arisen gain, honor, and praise. Not let the arisen gain, honor, and praise persist obsessing our mind. This is where the Buddha teaches you to cut things off and let it go. There's other teachings where you can see that the Buddha teaches this. So here, what he's saying is when this conceit is arising, when you're getting all these pleasant feelings based on this gain, honor, and praise, cut that off and let it go. Don't allow it to continue in the mind. Don't allow it to persist. Because if you allow your mind to dwell in that conceit, your mind's just going to stay conceited. So where you see this conceit, this arrogance, this boastfulness, this pride starting to arise in your mind, cut it off and let it go. Reside humble. Because if you become arrogant and boastful and prideful amongst your friends and family, people are going to push you aside. They don't like that, right? If you're trying to put yourself above people, you're trying to put yourself below people, people don't like this. They tend to push you aside when these things are happening. But if you can just see yourself as an average person, just like everybody else, sure, you're looking to do some good things in the world and you're looking to help the world in certain ways. Sure, that's wonderful. But don't try to put yourself above people where you're judging other people and trying to figure out if you're above them or below them. And remember, putting yourself below people is just as dangerous as putting yourself above people. Your mind will be shaken up. People won't be able to trust you, and kind of they'll look at you, they'll look down at you. So just look at yourself as being equal to everybody, whether it's the president of your country or the prime minister, or whether it's somebody sweeping the streets out on the street. We're all equal. Nobody's above each other. Nobody's below each other. We're just all the same. And the more you train your mind to think that way, you can relate to others in a harmonious way and have wonderful relationships. So any questions here on this particular chapter? Oh, we've got some coming in on Zoom here. If you guys have questions, you guys can use the microphones here at the temple. I need to take this off so I can read this. So Chris is asking, is it possible to be interested in gain, honor, and praise without conceit and without personal existence view? If so, what would that look like? If you want gain, honor, and praise from others, then this is from the mind's conceit. So a person who doesn't have conceit would be unaffected. If somebody's talking to you with lots of admiration and honor and respect, your mind would be unaffected by that. You would remain calm and peaceful. And then because of that, if somebody talks to you in a degrading or disrespectful way, you can also remain calm in that situation too. But if you allow your mind to get happy and excited when somebody talks to you in a very loving and kind and agreeable way, that means when someone speaks to you in a disagreeable way, you're going to experience painful feelings. You're going to be angry and sad because your mind really wants everybody to talk to you in a polite, respectful, way, an honorable way, or an agreeable way. And you live in an impermanent world. Not everybody's going to talk to you in an agreeable way. So some people are going to talk to you with disrespect, and you may not choose to associate with those individuals, but your mind can stay stable and steady. Your mind doesn't need to be shaken up just because someone else is choosing to be disrespectful. But if you have conceit in your mind and you're craving for everyone to treat you a certain way, you will be shaken up. So Chris, this isn't possible what you're describing. It's best to get rid of all that conceit and just however people treat you, that's their decision. And then you just make decisions about who you would like to associate with and remain unaffected no matter how people treat you. If they treat you agreeable, be unaffected by that. If they treat you disagreeable, be unaffected by that. And just make wise decisions about who to associate with in your life. Chris is asking some more here. Why did Gotama Buddha's word his original statement in the way that would possibly imply that an arahant still has obstructions? Was this part of a teaching technique? So what he's referring to is up here at the top. No, what he's doing is he's just sharing a certain portion of what he's understanding, of what he's sharing. He's saying, gain, honor, and praise, I say, are an obstacle even for an arahant who is, or for a monk who is an arahant, one with taints destroyed. So we only shared a portion of the teaching. And then he allowed his students to be able to ask more questions, right? Because if a student's interested in asking questions, they will ask more questions, and then the teacher will share more with them. So sometimes a teacher might just share in their mind, they already understand what this means, but for a student, they need to ask more questions. So you should never assume that what you're hearing is 100% of the teachings, right? I've oftentimes teach like the first precept or the second precept or other precepts, and I'll teach to a certain level of detail, and then students need to ask more and more and more to understand it more deeply. So this is what a teacher will do, is they'll teach to a certain level of detail and then go deeper and deeper as their students ask more questions. Okay, so Chris has more questions here. Teacher, what does Gotama Buddha mean when he says, thus you should train yourselves? Does he mean that I should repeat the phrase, I will abandon the arisen gain, honor, and praise, so forth and so on, and soak it into one's mind? Or would doing that help? What he's saying is, here, he's saying that you should cut off and let go of any arisen gain, honor, and praise, and not let the arisen gain, honor, and praise persist. That's what he's saying, to train your mind. He's saying, cut this off and let it go. Don't allow the mind to dwell in this conceit. Because if you allow the mind to dwell in this conceit and stay wired with this conceit, it's just going to continue to be conceitful over and over and over again. So you're looking to cut this off and eliminate it out of the mind. And eventually, when you uproot this conceit out of the mind, it will no longer arise. But as long as you have conceit in your mind, it's going to arise. But where you see it arising, if you cut it off and let it go, eventually you will uproot it out of the mind and it will no longer arise. It's just like a weed. If you pluck a weed out of the ground and you get the roots out, it will never grow back again. But if you just cut it off a little bit, it will grow back because you haven't gotten to the root. So if you can cut it back and cut it back and cut it back and cut it back and uproot it out of the ground, now it'll never grow back again. That's the same thing you'd like to do with conceit and all these other pollutions that the Buddha taught, is you'd like to uproot them out of the mind. And that's going to mean that you're going to need to cut it back and 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 ultimately uproot it. And that's what he's saying. This is the way to train your mind, is to not allow the mind to dwell in this conceit. Okay. So let me see if we have any other questions here. Somebody's asking on YouTube, won't it be like becoming a doormat? I guess what he's referring to, or she's referring to, is if people treated you with disrespect and you didn't become angry and frustrated and agitated with them, wouldn't you be treated like a doormat? Well, if you put out disrespect to others, then people are going to treat you with disrespect. But if somebody's being disrespectful and you choose to walk away and do nothing about it, and you choose to no longer associate with this individual, then more and more you're going to have people around you that are just being respectful. Because what people learn slowly but surely is, hey, when I'm disrespectful to this person doesn't spend time with me. So for example, let's just say you have friends or family right now that are being disrespectful to you. This is because you're disrespectful too. I guarantee you that in certain situations, you're being disrespectful. And now when you're putting that out, that's what's coming back to you. So you're going to need to clean up your practice where you're being polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to everybody around you. And as you're doing that for an extended period of time, and you're putting out politeness, kindness, friendliness, and respect, more and more people will treat you that way. But if you're treating people with disrespect, then yes, people are going to treat you with disrespect. But if you can transform your mind through all the tools and techniques that the Buddha taught, and then in situations where people are choosing to be disrespectful with you, understand that that's not you that's causing that. That's their own mind. That's their own pollution that's causing that. And whether you choose to stay in that relationship or not is up to you. But you can choose to remain calm and peaceful and humble, and you can just choose to walk away if you'd like. You can choose to smile. There's many different choices that you can make, but getting angry and hostile and bitter to the person isn't actually solving the problem, because in that situation, you're putting more and more hostility out, and that's just all going to come back to you. So the last thing you're interested in doing is, when someone's disrespectful to you, is to be disrespectful back. It's kind of like if somebody picked up a rubber ball and they threw it around the room, and then you picked it up and threw it around the room, and then they picked it up and threw it around the room. Next thing you know, you got these rubber balls bouncing all around the room. But if someone picks up the rubber ball of disrespect and they throw it around the room, and you just watch it lose its energy and it rolls into the corner and it just sits in the corner. There's no more disrespect rolling around because you didn't pick it up. Right? But if you keep picking up this ball and keep throwing it around, they're going to keep picking up the ball and throwing it around too. So when someone picks up the rubber ball of anger or hatred or frustration or disrespect or anything like that, don't respond to that, because there's no need to respond to that. Your response can be to just walk away. Right? And now this person learns slowly but surely, hey, if I would like to spend time with this person, I'm going to need to change the way that I am. But if they're disrespectful to you and you're disrespectful back, they can't see that they're the problem. Right? All they see is a bunch of disrespect floating around the room. But if they're disrespectful or angry or hateful, and you just smile and you just calmly walk away, they can see that they're the ones who are being angry and disrespectful. It's not coming from you, right? And then they can see their problem, and slowly but surely they might get help for that. Okay, so that's how you can handle those kinds of situations. Okay, I'm going to check Facebook here and see if we have any questions coming in. Okay, I don't see any questions on Facebook, and I don't see any more here either. So let's move to the next chapter, which is chapter 2, or chapter 22. Is there anyone who would like to read this? Okay, Chris, go ahead, sir.
How is a monk mindful and exercising clear comprehension? And how, monks, is a monk mindful? Here, monks, a monk resides reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware, and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware, and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware, and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware, and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. It is in such a way that a monk is mindful. And how, monks, does a monk exercise clear comprehension? Dear monks, a monk is one who acts with clear comprehension, when going forward and returning, when looking ahead and looking aside, when drawing in and extending the limbs, when wearing his robes and carrying his outer robe and bowl, when eating, drinking, chewing his food and tasting, when defecating and urinating, when walking, standing, sitting, falling asleep, waking up, speaking, and keeping silent. It is in such a way that a monk exercises clear comprehension.
Okay, thank you, sir. So here in this chapter, it picks up where we left off in the last chapter. In the last chapter, we were talking about when this conceit is arising, to cut it off and let it go. And this is ensuring that your mind doesn't dwell in the discontentedness. Well, the way that you accomplish that is you develop what's called mindfulness, or awareness of mind. In this first part where the Buddha is saying about mindfulness, he's describing what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. You're going to need to develop this in your practice, where you first start working on developing awareness of mind, of what's going on in your mind, but then more specifically, you start developing what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And this is developed through your meditation. That's why we did breathing mindfulness meditation this morning. And that's a practice that you would like to build up to 2 or 3 times a day for about 30 minutes or more. And it can take you about 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to that kind of frequency. But if you gradually build up to 2 or 3 sessions of meditation per day for 30 minutes or more, you'll develop this awareness of your mind that you will see these pollutions. You will see these discontent feelings. You will see your thoughts and ideas, whether they're wholesome or unwholesome, and then you'll be able to take action upon that and be able to eradicate this unwholesome thoughts that are in the mind. So this mindfulness, you generally think about it as awareness of mind, where you have awareness, general awareness of the mind. But more specifically, you would like to dive into developing what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And that's what the Buddha is talking about here when he says, body is body, feelings is feelings, mind is mind, mental objects is mental objects. When you have something in your mind called craving, desire, attachment, this is the mind's longing, yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection, wanting things to be a certain way. And if you get what you want, you get pleasant feelings. You get so happy and excited and elated. Like maybe it's sunny outside, you get happy. Or maybe your bank account balance is a certain amount of money and you're so happy. Or your boss does something that you really wanted him to do or her to do, and you get so happy about that, right? That's called a conditioned feeling, that your mind is longing, yearning, you're wanting something. Maybe you get a brand new boyfriend or girlfriend and you get so happy with this person, right? So this is a conditioned feeling. It's called a pleasant feeling. But then when that condition changes and your mind's not getting what you want, that's where the painful feelings come in. So if you get really happy when it's sunny outside, when it rains, you'll be sad or you'll be frustrated because that sun is not permanent. And your happiness was based on the condition that if it's sunny outside, I will be happy. And now when that changes, you will be sad because now your mind wanted it to be sunny. Or if your bank account balance is a certain amount and you get so happy when your bank account balance is that amount, then when it goes down, you'll be sad and you'll be frustrated. This is called conditional happiness. And with conditional happiness, you can't be happy all the time. You can only be happy when the conditions are met. That when this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens, then I will be happy. But if those things aren't happening, then you'll be sad or you'll be frustrated. And the thing is that everything in the world around you is impermanent. So the things that you want aren't permanent. So if you want a boyfriend or girlfriend, that person isn't permanent. So you can only be happy when you're with them. Or if you want your bank account balance to be a certain amount, it can't be that permanently. It's not possible. Your bank account's going to go up and down. So if you can only be happy when your bank account is a certain balance, then you can't be happy when it goes down. Even if you get that happiness, say you want $5,000 in your bank account and you get so happy when it's at $5,000, that happiness is there for a little while, but then it wears off. And now you want 7,000 or 10,000 or 15,000. Your mind has this cravings, desires, attachments where it's wanting, it's longing and yearning. Well, when you have these cravings, desires, attachments in your mind, when you're getting what you want, you'll get those pleasant feelings. And when you don't get what you want, you get the painful ones. Well, before these conditioned feelings arise, there's something called bodily sensations. And that's what the Buddha is referring to here when he's saying body is body. There's these bodily sensations that are occurring, giving you an early warning that, hey, your mind's about to get a conditioned feeling. So if you think back to a recent time when you've been angry or sad or frustrated, there's some bodily sensation that's happening. There's like tightening in the chest, there's tightening in the throat, there's heat in your face, there's pressure in your skull. This is the bodily sensations. This is the early warning system that's your body's telling you and your mind's telling you, hey, you're about to get angry. You're about to get frustrated. And you have an opportunity at that point to cut it off and let it go before it comes into your mind. Because if you don't cut it off as a bodily sensation, it's then going to become a feeling. That's what the Buddha is saying, feelings as feelings. You need to be aware of the feelings. But once it becomes a feeling, you can cut it off and let it go there. But the ideal thing would be to cut it off as a bodily sensation so that your mind doesn't experience the anger. It's kind of like if you were taking a boat from Canada to the UK, you would like to ensure the water never comes into the boat. Because once the water gets in the boat, you got a real problem to deal with now. You got to get this water out. So it's the same thing as once the anger comes into the mind, you got a real problem to deal with now. You got to get it out. But if you can stop it before it ever comes into the mind, you can actually preserve the mind. You can protect the mind. So you're not suppressing your feelings or pushing them down. You're actually cutting them off before the mind ever experiences the anger or the sadness. Essentially, you're transforming the mind, getting the mind to the point where it no longer forms conditioned feelings. So these bodily sensations are alerting you that, hey, you're about to get angry. It's kind of like your mind's about to form a conditioned feeling, and the bodily sensations are like, hey, I'm about to form a conditioned feeling. I'm about to form a conditioned feeling. I'm about to form a conditioned feeling. And you can say, nope, not going to let you do that, right? If you let it form the conditioned feeling, now your mind's dwelling in that conditioned feeling. And now whatever condition that caused that feeling, it's not permanent. So even the pleasant feelings have a bodily sensation, the painful feelings and the feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. So to get to what we call unconditioned happiness or unconditioned joy, where the mind is just always joyful and always happy, you need to train the mind to eliminate the conditional happiness. So if you're willing to let go of this temporary happiness that is not actually fulfilling, it arises, changes, and fades away. It's not true happiness. It's conditional happiness. If you're willing to let that go, then you can get to the permanent happiness, to the permanent joy. And it comes in part through understanding right mindfulness and understanding these 4 foundations of mindfulness, that there's going to be these bodily sensations that you need to cut off and let go. And if you do that enough, eventually you'll eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments, and the mind will never experience any of these conditioned feelings any longer. You won't experience the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all these other feelings. But if you miss it as a bodily sensation, it's going to become a feeling. So now cut it off there. Don't let your mind sit there. So if you're watching the news and you see something on TV and you're starting to feel the frustration arise, don't just dwell in that. When you see the frustration arising, cut the news off. Go outside. Go for a walk. Don't allow the mind to dwell in that conditioned feeling. Or say you're on the phone with your mom and she's saying something and you feel the frustration arising. Mom, I got to go. I love you so much. We'll talk later. Bye-bye. Right? And just say goodbye and go. Right? Don't allow the mind to dwell in that conditioned feeling. And if she's like, no, I need to talk to you. Another time, Mom. We'll talk later. Bye-bye. Right? And you just say goodbye. Right? And she might get angry, but you're not causing her anger. If she's holding on to you and she's wanting to talk to you and you say goodbye, she's going to get angry, but you're not causing it. It's her own mind because she's holding on to you. She's wanting you to be permanent, right? So when you see these things occurring where you're noticing the bodily sensations or the feelings coming to the mind, you can cut this off and let it go. Because if you don't, the third thing's going to happen where the Buddha is saying mind is mind. This is where your condition of your mind is going to be affected more long term. Have you ever been angry or agitated or grumpy or annoyed for many hours or maybe like a day or two or even a week or two? Have you ever experienced that? Of course you have, right? Of course you have. We all have, right? That's what the unenlightened mind does is you experience something, somebody does something, you hear something, you see something happens in your life, and now you have a craving for it to be done a certain way, and it didn't get done that way, and now your anger starts to arise. First, there's going to be a bodily sensation. Next, it's going to be a feeling in the mind. Then, it's going to affect the condition of your mind. For the next few hours, the next day or two, the next week or two, you're going to be agitated. You're going to be annoyed. And then it's feeding what's called a mental object. A mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind, like conceit or ill will. And there's others. There's the 10 pollutions, the 10 fetters. So what the Buddha is teaching you here is in order to have mindfulness, you're going to need to be aware of these 4 things because that's how you purify your mind. That when you see these bodily sensations associated with the cravings, desires, attachments arising, you can cut it off and let it go. But you're not going to be able to do that right from the beginning because you haven't developed your mindfulness yet. You need to accumulate enough benefits from your meditation. So when you're consistently meditating over a long-term period, you will develop this awareness of their mind where you can observe the bodily sensations and you can cut it off and let it go. And more, you'll transform your mind. But where you miss it as a bodily sensation, because sometimes you will as you're getting going in your training, and it does become a feeling, cut it off there. If you don't get it as a feeling, maybe it's been an hour or two or a day or two, and you're noticing you're generally kind of grumpy and irritated. Whoa, look at that. The mind's irritated for a few hours. Cut that off and let it go. Brighten up the mind, lift it up, and train your mind to let that go. And then what this is going to do is it's going to ultimately uproot these mental objects, these deeply rooted containers in the mind that are keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. So that's what he's talking about here with mindfulness. Then the next thing he's talking about is exercising clear comprehension. This is part of right concentration. This is the 8th step on the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha has this core central teaching called the Eightfold Path. There's 8 individual steps. And the first one that I was just talking about, that's step 7. That's right mindfulness that he's teaching you. Here he's teaching you about right concentration. He's teaching you to practice singleness of mind. That through your day-to-day life, whenever you're doing something, you should only do one thing at a time. Your mind actually can't do more than one thing at a time. In the world, some people teach multitasking. Have you guys ever heard about that? Multitasking? It's actually not possible for your mind to multitask. What you're actually doing is your mind is rapidly cycling from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. So if you're like writing out an email and then you jump over to the phone and you start answering the phone, and now somebody walks into your office and you're dealing with the person in your office, you're actually not doing 3 things at one time. You're actually rapidly cycling. Your mind's jumping around from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. And then you get to the end of your day after 8 or 12 hours of doing that, and you can't relax. You go home and you're stressed, you're feeling anxiety. It's really hard for you to calm down because your mind was jumping around so much, and you'll find it hard to concentrate. So when you're watching a YouTube video, or you're watching a movie, or you're talking to your friend, you might find it very challenging to concentrate because your mind isn't trained and it's not focused. So what the Buddha is teaching you is to train your mind to have singleness of mind so that you can focus and have clear comprehension. So here he's using examples for the monks. He's saying when you're going forward and returning, meaning when you're walking, right? When you're looking ahead or looking aside, when you're drawing in your limbs or extending your limbs, wearing your robes, carrying your outer robe and bowl, eating, drinking, chewing food, so forth and so on. He's going through all these examples of things that the monks do. Well, you do some of these things too, right? If you're eating and watching a YouTube video at the same time, you're actually not doing those two things at the same time. Your mind's rapidly cycling back and forth and back and forth. And you might think that you're bored if you just sit there and eat alone. And the way that you're going to solve that is watch a YouTube video, but you actually haven't solved it because the craving is still in your mind. You can't sit there and just enjoy the food all by yourself and just eat food because your mind's craving some kind of stimulation. And the mind thinks if I watch this YouTube video, I've solved my problem. But you haven't solved the problem because the next time you're sitting alone, you can't be peaceful. You can't be joyful. You're bored. You're lonely. So the way that you solve your boredom and loneliness is get rid of the craving, desire, attachment. So as you're eating, you just eat. Just do one thing at a time. You practice singleness of mind. Or if you're washing dishes, you just wash your dishes. And if you see your mind wandering and daydreaming, you cut that off and let it go and bring your mind back. That's what the mindfulness is helping you do. That if you have awareness of mind and you're washing dishes and you see your mind's wandering, you cut that off and let it go and bring it back. Or if you're in a business meeting and your boss is talking and your mind's like thinking about going to Thailand, man, I can't wait to get out of here and go to Thailand. Like when you do that, you cut that off and you're like, no, I need to pay attention to my boss, right? So you like to focus and be concentrated and clear. And the more you do this, your mind will become more and more concentrated and focused. It's kind of like a piece of wood and a steel rod. If you grind the steel rod back and forth, when you first start, it's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove yet. But the more that you bring this steel rod back and forth across the wood, it's going to get deeper and deeper and deeper into the wood. And eventually it's going to stay in that groove because your mind's focused and concentrated. So if you train your mind this way with mindfulness and with focus and singleness of mind, more and more your mind will be focused and concentrated. And now whether it's your personal life or your professional life, you'll be able to be concentrated all the time. And because you've now fine-tuned your mind's now performing optimally. Okay, so any questions on this chapter? This is titled How is a Monk Mindful in Exercising Clear Comprehension? Any questions? Yes, ma'am. If you could get a microphone, Pat behind you has one. There's a button on there. You just have to wait a second or two for it to come on. Not yet. No, Pat will help you. No? Oh. Maybe it is. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Chris, for taking my question.
My name's David, but you can call me Chris if you like.
Thank you, David, for taking my question.
Chris is online.
Sorry. I love what you just shared, and I really have a question associated to the case you just mentioned on the mom's call, because my mom matters a lot to me. Mm-hmm. She's someone I really want to take care. But at that time, if she really needs me at that time, I really want to show my support and be sensitive to her feelings. But you just mentioned we can just cut it off and then say bye-bye. Is it too cold-blooded?
Is it what?
Cold. Blood.
Okay. So what's going to happen is...
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. When people are unenlightened and they don't have the wisdom of the path to enlightenment, they will get angry when they're not getting what they want, right? If they're holding on to you, for example, and then you choose to walk away, they will get angry and they will get frustrated. But you need to be able to see that you are not causing their anger. What's causing their anger is their mind is craving and clinging, and they want you to be permanent when they live in an impermanent world. And if you just stay in the conversation with them, you're not actually solving the problem. Their problem is they're craving and clinging. They've got to get rid of that. They've got to get rid of holding on to you and wanting you to be permanent, because otherwise they're just going to keep being angry over and over again. So by you being, say, in a conversation with somebody, if you chose to walk away, you're not causing any harm to that person. Harm would be as if you're causing them harm to their physical body, you're causing harm to their material possessions, or you're causing harm to someone's reputation. Things like this. This would be the way to cause harm. You can cause harm, but you can't cause discontentedness. If someone's getting angry or frustrated, they're causing it themselves. They don't realize that, but they are. So if you're with your mom and she's starting to talk and you're noticing your frustration arising, she's not causing your frustration. It's your own mind. But it's unwise to stay in a conversation where you're noticing your frustration arising, or even her frustration arising, because you guys are going to become unskillful. Your intentions, your speech, your actions, you're going to start doing things you regret later. So rather than allow that to continue to arise and now do something unskillful that damages the relationship, it's oftentimes better to walk away. And you can do this politely, right? You don't need to be disrespectful. You can say, Mom, I love you. I need to go. We'll talk another time. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye. Right? You can do things like that. You'll get better and better at that. But if your mind's holding on and you're wanting mom to be a certain way, you won't be able to let go. Right? So you can walk away in a warm, loving, and caring way. But you just need to learn how to do that. Right now, it would be maybe hard for you because your mind's holding on in that conversation. So we can take care of our parents. In fact, if you do these kinds of things with your parents, it's one of the most loving things you can do, because they're most likely attached to you and they're holding on to you. They're wanting you to be a certain way. They might be putting their expectations on you and trying to control you to do things a certain way. This is because of their untrained mind. They think the way that they're going to get to happiness is to get you to do things their way. And this is what's getting in the way of your wonderful relationship with your parents. Whereas if they get that out of the way, they can just love you as you are. And whatever you would like to do, I just love you as you are. I don't want you to do anything specific. I just love you as you are. But the way parents do it is they think oftentimes that their expectations of controlling you, they think that that's better for you, and them controlling you and putting their expectations on you, they think that's their love. But that's not their love. That's their craving, their desire, their attachment, their wants and expectations. And they're not going to get to happiness that way. Because if your parents have certain expectations like this and you work your way up to those expectations, they'll be happy for a period of time, maybe a few months. But you know what's going to happen with their expectations? Yep, they're going to want more, right? And now you have to work to get to those. And now they're happy for like a month or two, and then they want more. So the last thing you're interested in doing is incentivizing craving. When somebody has craving, desire, attachment, and they're holding on to you and they're trying to cling to you, you would like to help them to let that go. And you can do that skillfully by just choosing to walk away in some situations. And that's the most loving, kind, and compassionate thing you could do. You're welcome. Okay. I don't see any more questions unless this one. Let me see. Oh, okay. Chris is having some more questions here. I got to take this mic off. My eyes are really old. Okay. So, Teacher David, my 7-year-old son asked why I was holding two things in my hand and walking at the same time. I could not really answer him if I was doing two things at a time or not. Can you answer why holding things in one's hand and walking is not doing two things at once, or why it is, and how that is different from trying to eat and watch a TV show at the same time? Okay, so the body can do more than one thing at a time, but the mind can only be in one place at a time. So I can rub my head and I can rub my stomach, and the hands, the body can do two things at one time. But if you do this, you'll notice your mind can only be in one spot at a time. So if you're holding an apple in one hand and an orange in another hand, and you're walking down the street, your mind's focused on the walking. But the body is holding an apple and an orange, but the mind's only in one place at a time. So it's not about what the body's doing, which is what your son's pointing out to you. It's what the mind's doing. So you can explain to him that your mind is only in one spot, which is you're focused on the walking, and the body is holding two things. So that's the difference here. Okay. So let me check YouTube and Facebook. I don't see any questions there. So let's go to the next one. Is there someone who would like to read this next one? This is chapter 23. Very short one. Yeah. Oh, you have a question? Okay. Yeah.
When you that cut off thing, the mom phone call thing, I started to think of that. What frustrated me is the news on the outside. I was thinking if I hear something bad news, but it's not about myself, it's about the world. There are many things that frustrating happen in the world. Blood, cruelty, disasters, and wars in the world. If I hear news like that, I usually get frustrated. But when you saying that cut off thing, I can cut off thing with my mom because I think she has the ability to deal with the problem of herself. So I don't take responsibilities of my mom's frustration. So I understand that. But when it comes to things frustrating happening in the world, I think cut off is I think people who are really phenomenal, they do things to change what's happening in the world. Like Che Guevara, he participated in the Cuba Revolution, and that changes many people's life. And they bring, I think they change the disaster. They make that frustration go away. So I was wondering, how will you explain my thinkings? I still think it's I don't think I like this.
Okay. So the underlying problem in both of those situations with mom and with the world, it's the same underlying problem. The mind is craving for things to be a certain way permanently, either craving for mom to be a certain way or craving for the world to be a certain way. Of course, having a war in the world is unfortunate. You know, there's a lot of people that are being hurt. And now we actually have more than one war in the world. And this is very unfortunate for those people that are involved. But if your mind's craving permanence, where you're wanting the world to be a certain way, you're expecting it, you're longing, yearning, that's what's going to cause your mind to be frustrated and agitated and annoyed. Oftentimes we think it's because we care or that we love. We think that that's what's causing the frustration and anger, but that doesn't cause frustration and anger. When you care for somebody or you have love for somebody, love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. So love doesn't cause anger. What's causing the anger is the mind is craving things to be permanent. I permanently want the world to be peaceful. I want everyone in the world to be peaceful. I don't want anybody to be hurt. And now when somebody gets hurt or there's a war, you'll be frustrated. You'll be angry because the mind's craving permanence. So what you need to be able to do is get to the point where you care about the world and you love people in the world, but you don't form your inner feelings based on what's happening in the world. Because if you can only be happy when the world is peaceful, wow, you're not going to be happy ever, right? Because everybody's peacefulness in the world is based on their own decisions. It's not based on your decisions. So I would prefer for there to be no wars in the world, but I don't have any control over that. I don't have a control over whether people fight a war or not because I'm not the one making the decisions. If it was me making the decisions, there wouldn't be any wars, but there's 8 billion beings in the world and you can't control them. All you can do is control your own mind. So if you're noticing the frustration coming up in the mind because there's certain things in the world going on, you can learn how to cut that off and let it go. That might be a really strong craving for you right now, and you have a hard time doing that. But that's where the meditation is coming in, that is gradually helping your mind to get to the point where you can cut things off and let it go. But if you haven't been training your mind regularly, yeah, it'll be really hard for you to do that. But that's why this is gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You're not going to be able to learn something like this and then go out into the world and instantly cut this off and let it go. You're going to need to accumulate the benefits of meditating regularly before your mind's able to do that. And then as you are able to do it, you can get free from these strong feelings where you'll see that a war is happening. And it's like, oh, that's unfortunate. right? But you won't have sadness or anger because of it, because that's not your care, your love that's causing that. It's your craving, your desire, your longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. And this is the way every unenlightened mind functions. It's not just yours, it's every unenlightened mind. But you can transform this, and you can train the mind to not do this any longer. And one of the bases that you need to understand, one of the fundamental teachings, is the universal truth of impermanence. Everything around you is impermanent. Everything's constantly changing. But the mind craves permanence. The mind craves for things to be a certain way permanently. I want my boss to do this. I want my mom to do this. I want the world to be like this. I want my bank account to be like this. This is what the mind does. It craves permanence. But you live in an impermanent world. And remember, none of the teachings of the Buddha are based in belief. You can independently verify what I'm sharing with you, that everything in the world's constantly changing. Look around you. See if you can find something that's permanent. Everything around you is impermanent, but the mind craves this permanence. So look at a recent time when you've been angry or sad or frustrated. At that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else for the feelings that you were having, but look at that same situation and look at it now with these fresh eyes. What was it that your mind was craving? There was something you were longing for or yearning for. And if you got it, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get it, you were sad or angry or frustrated. You can see it. Even like, say your grandmother and grandfather die and you feel sad. It's not your love that's causing that. What's causing it is you're craving grandma and grandpa to be permanent. Grandma and grandpa aren't permanent. They are impermanent. They were born, so they have to die. But the mind with its craving, if grandma and grandpa are alive, you'll be happy. But if they're dead, meaning you're experiencing impermanence, you'll be sad and frustrated because the mind's not getting what it wants. Do you guys see it? You can independently verify for yourself that your mind's causing your own painful feelings. So one of the cravings that people oftentimes have is they crave for the world to be a certain way. They want it to be a certain way. And you can't change the world. Sometimes people carry around this burden that they're going to go off into the world and change the world, right? You can't change the world. You can understand the world. You can learn about the world. You can understand these natural laws that the Buddha taught. And now when you understand these natural laws, you'll be able to navigate the world more peacefully. But you can't change the natural laws. Each individual person has to choose to change themselves. Like, I can't change you. There's nothing I can do to change you. It's your choice of whether you change or not. And what helps you to change is wisdom. So that's why I do teach, because it helps people. But it's not me that's doing the change. It's you that's choosing to change. If you live in a world that you don't understand, you'll struggle and you'll have difficulties. And that's essentially what the unenlightened mind is doing, is that you live in a world that you don't understand. And that's why you struggle and have difficulties, and you have stress and anxiety and loneliness and boredom and all these other discontent feelings, because the mind is wanting things to be a certain way permanently, not realizing that it lives in an impermanent world. The mind lacks wisdom about these natural laws of existence. And when you understand the natural laws that the Buddha taught, he's explaining to you the way the world is. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be. And if everybody follows these rules and commandments, the world will become peaceful. That's not what he's teaching you. He's teaching you to understand the way the world is. And now when you understand the way the world is, and you start navigating the world with that wisdom, your mind will become more peaceful and joyful. So if your mind wants the world to be a certain way permanently, the mind isn't understanding the way the world is. This is a common one. Many people have this, where they crave for the world to be a certain way. And the mind just doesn't understand the way the world is, that the way the world is it's impermanent. And each individual being is making their own decisions, and you can't change other people. Okay? So you're going to need to eliminate that craving, that wanting, that expectation for the world to be a certain way, and come to the middle, where you can have care and concern for the world. Because over here, when you want the world to be a certain way, the mind's chasing and having craving, you can't be happy there. But also, if you're over here, where you could care less about the world, and you didn't care what was happening in the world, you wouldn't be happy there either. But when you come to the middle, where you can have care and concern for the world, but without craving and without indifference, then you can get to happiness and joy. But the mind doesn't know how to do that until you train it. There's a core central teaching called the Eightfold Path that you need to gradually learn and practice to be able to eradicate the way that the mind is functioning and train it to perform better. And then you'll experience the peace and the joy. Okay. Have more?
I have another question. You say that you can love the world, you can love and care about the world, but you don't do things you don't craving to for the world to be a certain way. So I was thinking, how can you say that is love if I don't do anything? I just love and care, and how is that love and care?
I didn't say you don't do anything. I never said that, right? Because look what I'm doing.
So
I'm teaching.
How is your way you think is love and care?
What love and care is where you have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. That's what love and care is. Whether you choose to do something or not is a separate decision. So your mental state can be that I have love and care for the world. I would like to see the world be in a better condition, right? That's the love and the care, the genuine interest in seeing the world be better. Then whether you choose to do something in any particular situation, that's a separate decision, because not in all situations are you able to do anything. What I shared was you can't change the world. That's what I shared. You can't change the world. You can't change every individual being. There's 8 billion people in the world. You can't change them. Each individual person has to choose to change themselves. So if you carry around the burden to go out into the world and change the world, you can't change other people. Each individual person has to choose to change for themselves. So you could do something like what I'm doing, or there's many of other people that are doing wonderful things in the world where I'm sharing teachings that are helping people, but then those people have to choose to change themselves, right? But the way that the world is that the world is functioning on these natural laws. That's what you can't change. You can't change the natural laws. The world's functioning based on these natural laws. So if you understand how the world functions based on these natural laws, then you can change your own mind. And then each individual person has to decide for themselves to change. So you going out into the world and doing charitable work or helping people or, being kind and loving and warm, that's changing the world. Oftentimes people want to go out into the world and change other people. That's not going to result in beneficial results because each individual person has to decide to change for themselves. If somebody is really interested in changing the world, start with your own mind. If you change your own mind and you train your own mind, that will change the world. But if you go out into the world with the idea that I want to change other people, this is like, okay, your mind thinks that what I'm doing is so great and everybody should do things my way. And I'm going to go out into the world and try to change everybody else to do things my way. And if they do things my way, the world will be fine. The world will be wonderful. But that's coming from the mind's conceit or the arrogance or the pride. Instead, what you would like to do is focus on training your mind, purifying your mind, getting rid of the pollutions of mind. And then if you'd like to go out into the world and help people through charitable work or generosity or things like that, you can do that. But each individual person needs to decide to change for themselves. So you can love the world, have a genuine interest in seeing the world be well, and also go out into the world and help people if you like. But you don't have to. That's not a burden that you need to carry. And those are two separate decisions. Having the mind to have the mental state of love and care for others, and then whether you choose to do something to help others is a separate decision.
So what do you think of the revolutionist?
I don't know. What revolution?
Che Guevara.
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar
he
with
started the Cuba Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think of the revolution? Because I salute and respect them. I honor them. I think they really do something that I wanted to do. And I think they changed the world for not permanently, for a time. I think that's also good. What do you think? And I think they do things like that because they hold the belief that I can change the world. If you don't have the belief, you cannot do it.
With belief, you don't know what's true or false. Someone's just believing something. Even someone like the Buddha, he didn't change the world. What he did is he explained the world. He helped people cultivate wisdom about the world. The Buddha didn't change the world. The Buddha shared teachings that is going to help each individual learn and cultivate wisdom. And when they cultivate wisdom, then that individual's mind has changed. But that person's mind that changed, they chose to do that themselves. So a leader of a revolution, they're not changing the world. What they've done is they've created a certain movement that is providing wisdom and education. And it's through wisdom that people change. When you cultivate wisdom in your mind, now an individual will make different decisions. And when you make different decisions, slowly but surely, if 8 billion people make different decisions, then the world will experience different results. But I haven't changed the world. The Buddha hasn't changed the world. Other people haven't changed the world. All they are doing is providing certain information that helps people to cultivate wisdom. And now that individual has to choose to either make decisions the same way that they are making them, or they need to make decisions differently. And as human beings, when we make decisions differently, now the world will become a more peaceful and more loving place. But that's a decision for each individual person to make. So I couldn't go out into the world and change the world. But what I can do is I can explain to you the world. I can help you understand how the world functions. And now when you understand how the world functions and you have that wisdom, you will become a more peaceful person. And now you will be able to help more people around you. But this idea of going out into the world to change the world, this is a very heavy burden to carry. Anybody who's doing any kind of movement or revolution or something like that, and it needs to come from helping people cultivate wisdom. The more that people cultivate wisdom, then they can change their own mind, and then slowly and surely the world will become a better place. But we haven't changed the world. Individual people have chosen to change their mind. Do you see the difference? If you don't see the difference, you can say, no, I don't see the difference.
I'm still a little confused. Because I think the revolutions, they hold the belief, they hold the cravings, so they have, you say it's a strong burden. If you don't hold the belief that, if you don't have the cravings, you won't take action to do things.
That's not true. The Buddha didn't have any cravings. He took action to do something. And he shared teachings that helped countless people. It's not craving that is producing the action. It's wise decision making. If you make decisions based in craving, it won't produce wholesome results. So let's just say I have a craving to make more money. And I chase it and 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 chase it. And I'm making unwise decisions all the way through. I get to the end of the road, I might have got more money, but you look behind you and there's all this destruction, that you've destroyed many relationships just because you're chasing money. But also if you're over here and you never do anything to improve your life and make wise decisions, you're just sitting around and you're not making any money, that's unwise too. So what the Buddha is teaching you is this middle way, that there's a way to make wise decisions, to gradually progress towards a goal or an objective or an interest. And when you do that with wisdom, now you'll have beneficial results. But if you chase it based in craving, sometimes you're going to get what you want, you'll be happy. Sometimes you won't get what you want and you're going to be sad and angry and frustrated. And now you're going to be unskillful in your relationships. You're going to be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people. Over here, you're dull and lethargic and sitting around being complacent and you're not doing anything for your life. But there's this middle way that your mind's having trouble to see, which is you gradually work towards a goal, objective, or interest through wise decision making. And now you can do that skillfully, with politeness, with kindness, with friendliness and respect. And now when you build this life in the middle way, it's an ideal life that you can sustain long term. But you need to do that through wisdom, not through craving. So you can pursue things through wisdom. Do you see the difference? Yeah?
If what I'm thinking, what I want to do, have obstacles, and if I think I stay in the middle way, I will lose the things to take action.
You'll lose what?
Lose the things to take action.
I'm sorry, lose the
things.
I'm sorry. The strength. Oh, okay. So right now, in the unenlightened state, with a lack of wisdom, the only way that you know to pursue things in your life is through craving. That's the only thing the unenlightened mind knows how to do in order to accomplish things, is operate through craving. And if you're not craving and chasing after things, you'll be exhausted and your mind will swing to the other side and you'll be dull and lethargic and you'll be sitting around doing nothing. This is the only thing that the unenlightened mind can see. It doesn't see this middle way. You've never practiced the middle way, so you don't know what that is. The only way that you know how to do things is chase and chase and chase and chase. But when you're not chasing, your mind swings to the other side, doesn't it? Yeah, you're shaking your head. Yeah, you're exhausted. And that's not how an enlightened being functions. An enlightened being can have sustainable energy all day long. They don't get exhausted. They don't get tired. They get sleepy where they need to sleep, but they don't get exhausted because they're not chasing after things. So you could chase all you want, but you're not going to be effective there, because as you're chasing, you're going to be making unwise decisions. You're going to be stumbling over your feet. You're going to be making all kinds of mistakes. And when you're not doing that, your mind's going to swing to this other side and you're going to be exhausted and tired. So I'm teaching you there's this better way that your mind doesn't know about yet and you haven't practiced, where you can gradually work towards things as a goal, objective, or interest. And when you learn how to do that, then you can have real impact in the world. Not talking about changing the world. You can have impact in the world. Impact meaning you can influence others to then implement change in their life. And then they can choose to change on their own. But you're not changing them. They're choosing to change on their own. So you can influence and impact the world in a positive way. But it's each individual being that's choosing to change their own mind. You can't change the world, but you can influence the world and you can have impact in the world. But it's each individual person who's choosing to implement change in their own life.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You got it. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I've been following and studying the teachings of Buddha for 2 decades, and this is a rhetoric that I really struggle with. And I think earlier we were talking about disrespect, and I want to know, is it not disrespectful to refer to war or genocide as unfortunate? Mm-hmm. Is that not spiritual bypassing? Or to refer to 40,000 civilians being slaughtered and their bodies being torn apart as hurt? And this idea that we can't change the world, mm-hmm. I don't buy into that, because the world is constantly changing, because it isn't permanent. Mm-hmm. And it is constantly changing because of our individual actions. Mm-hmm. And saying to have love and care, mm-hmm. if those aren't actions, then it's just words and it's manipulation, right? Mm-hmm. That love is an action. Mm-hmm. And we can, I think, take the energy that we have, that when we're upset about horrible things that we witness, mm-hmm. and try to make change through influence. And I don't think that is different or prevents us from being enlightened. And if it does, I don't have the desire to be enlightened. I want to be a human who's participating in this world and speaking out against injustice, because I know it's much closer to happening to me than not. And maybe that's because I'm BIPOC, maybe that's because I'm a descendant of colonization, of genocide. But I really struggle with this rhetoric. So I want to understand how there's respect in that rhetoric towards those people who are enduring such violence that is completely man-made. Right? So I would like to know your views on that, please.
Okay, you said a lot of things there. Can you just boil it down to a question that you're asking?
Yes. How is it respectful to refer to war and genocide as unfortunate? And how is that on the path to enlightenment, to have spiritual bypassing, saying, oh, it's going to happen, I can't do anything about it? When we can influence people, which you've just said, right? That it seems like a rhetoric that just enables such violence to happen because you're not a world leader, right? Okay.
So what does your mind expect me to say?
I want to know your opinion on if it's respectful to refer to war and genocide as unfortunate, and that is the path that we have to take for our own enlightenment. We can't be participating in trying to stop such injustices.
I can see you have really strong feelings around this. Okay. I don't have strong feelings around this. What I'm sharing with you is it's unfortunate that there's a war in the world. I'm not going to describe the war in the same way that you describe it. And if you have an expectation for me to describe it in the same way as you, that's your own expectation. That's your
My
own
expectation
craving.
is how we can see war as simply unfortunate. Our word's choice matters, right? And that is so minimizing.
We're not going to be able to have a conversation when you ask me a question and I respond and then you cut me off.
You didn't answer my question.
Okay. I'm not going to respond any further.
That's fine.
Because this isn't the type of conversation.
Bypassing.
This isn't the type of conversation that I have with students.
That's fine.
And it's unfortunate that you're choosing to have that type of conversation.
And to know your opinion on
You're
how.
welcome to know my opinion, but you're not going to be able to understand it when you cut me off when I'm talking.
Okay.
Okay. So if you'd like to talk to me about this, you're welcome to come up after class because you're going to need to calm down.
I'm not uncommon. I don't appreciate that.
Okay. Our conversation's done. I'm sorry that you're not getting what you expect, but you're never going to get what you expect. Okay. So is there anybody else that has a question either here at the temple or online that you guys would like to ask about this chapter? Okay, let's move to the next chapter. This is chapter 23. Let's go to chapter 24. This will be our last chapter. Is there someone here at the temple or online that would like to read this one? Yes, sir.
Hello? Okay. The 6 subjects of conscious awareness. How many subjects of conscious awareness are there, Ananda? There are, Venerable Sir, 5 subjects of conscious awareness. Good, good, Ananda. Therefore, Ananda, remember this 6th subject of conscious awareness too. Here, ever mindful, a monk goes forward. Ever mindful, he returns. Ever mindful, he stands. Ever mindful, he sits. Ever mindful, he lays down to sleep. Ever mindful, he undertakes work. This subject of conscious awareness, developed and cultivated in this way, leads to mindfulness and clear comprehension.
Okay, thank you, sir. So here what the Buddha is talking about is developing the consciousness, developing mindfulness and awareness of mind. And here he's talking about 6 different times where it's wise to cultivate mindfulness. And if we kept on going in this particular book, you're going to see other situations too that he talks about. These aren't the only 6 times, but he's basically saying practice mindfulness at all times during your day. You need to be aware of what's going on in the mind, because as anger and strong feelings are arising, like we saw here, you need to be able to cut those off and let them go. Becoming unskillful through your intentions, your speech, and your actions, it's not actually going to produce beneficial results. You're never going to agree with everybody in the world and what everybody says, but if you can only be peaceful when people agree with you and you have a craving and a desire and attachment for other people to do things your way, when people aren't doing things your way, you'll be angry, you'll be sad, you'll be frustrated, and you'll become unskillful in a situation. We're going to disagree with each other. There's disagreements in the world. And if you can only be peaceful and joyful when other people agree with you, and when people don't agree with you, you become unskillful, this is going to cause problems in your life. You're not going to be able to have harmonious relationships with all beings in your life. So here what the Buddha is teaching you is to cultivate mindfulness, because you need to be aware when that frustration is arising, when that agitation is arising, when the irritation and annoyance is starting to arise. You need to be aware of that and cut that off and let it go, because otherwise the mind's going to become unskillful. And then you can't learn from other people, because sometimes we have certain views and opinions in our mind. We have certain perceptions that the mind's holding on to and it's clinging to, and it wants other people to agree with us. And if you don't agree with me, then I need to push you aside. I need to be bitter and harsh and hostile to you, or maybe I need to put my expectations on you in order to control you. This is what the unenlightened mind does. But when you can have mindfulness or awareness of mind, you can remain calm and peaceful in all situations. You won't push people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile. You won't push put your expectations on people, and you won't try to control people. But when the mind lacks mindfulness and is unaware of those strong feelings arising, you won't be able to cut them off and let them go. So when the mind experiences painful feelings, it will either push people away, this is called aversion, or it'll push a situation away. It'll push a situation away. Or you might become bitter, harsh, and hostile through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Or you might put your expectations on people and try to control people. And this is what the unenlightened mind does when it lacks wisdom and when it lacks this ability to have the mindfulness. When you have mindfulness, you can be aware of these strong feelings arising, and you'll be able to cut them off and let them go. And if you do this enough, you'll get to the point where strong feelings never arise. It doesn't matter what's happening in your day-to-day life, that there's no strong feelings that arise, that you don't have expectations and cravings for people to be a certain way. If you have an expectation or a craving, a longing, yearning for other people to be a certain way, then you'll be angry, you'll be frustrated and agitated, and then you'll push it away, thinking that that solves the problem. When you push people away or you push a situation away, that doesn't solve the problem. When you become bitter and harsh and hostile with people, that doesn't solve the problem. When you put expectations on people and try to control people, that doesn't solve the problem either. The problem is inside one's own mind, and when that is eradicated and eliminated, then you can be peaceful and joyful in all situations. And that's what the mindfulness is helping you to do. So here the Buddha is saying, essentially, when you're walking forward and you're walking back, when you're standing or sitting, have awareness of the mind. Also, when you're laying down to sleep, if you ever laid down to sleep and your thoughts invaded you, you need to have mindfulness during that period of time. When you're dozing off to sleep at night or you're waking up in the morning, you're going to need to cut off and let go of any intrusive thoughts that are coming into your mind. You need to be attentive and aware of the mind at all times. And then when you're undertaking your work, this is what we were talking about, like you're in a business meeting or something like this, you're going to need to learn how to be aware of the mind and cut that off and let it go, right? This is the times to be mindful. This is what the Buddha is teaching you. So you should practice mindfulness or awareness of mind at all times during your day. So are there any questions here on this chapter? If you guys online have questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, so I don't see any questions here. So we usually finish up class around this time. So I'm just going to finish up by thanking all of you guys for coming to class today. Thank you so much for being interested to learn the teachings of the Buddha. Understand that when you're learning the teachings of the Buddha, you're going to hear things that your mind currently doesn't agree with, that you currently don't understand. If you're in a class where the teacher is teaching you everything you already know, you're in the wrong class. You're going to, in order to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to hear things that your mind doesn't currently agree with. And that's an opportunity to be calm and peaceful and humble and respectful and ask questions. And then when you ask questions, then you get answers. But when you come to a class, if your goal is to make statements and tell the teacher what you think and what you believe, you're not getting any growth. You're not getting any wisdom to improve. So if you're in a situation where you're hearing things that you don't agree with, this is a great opportunity for you to ask questions and stay open to understanding what a person has to share. And then there's a respectful way to have that kind of conversation and help you to gain more wisdom, because gaining wisdom is what's going to help you to improve the condition of your mind. But if you go into a learning environment and you expect that person to be sharing things exactly the way you think about things in the world, you can't grow and you can't learn in that situation. So it's unfortunate here we had a situation where somebody had some craving and expectation and wanting me to do things a certain way. They didn't have the opportunity to learn and grow in that situation. And that's okay. That's their choice on this particular day. But I can't change other people. All I can do is share information that helps people to grow and to learn and to become a better and better individual through training their mind through the path to enlightenment. But I'm not going to teach things in the way that every student wants to hear. I'm going to be saying things in a way that's different in some situations. This is just impermanence. And if the mind craves permanence and a student wants a teacher to be saying things in a certain way, then they're going to get angry and frustrated when they don't hear a teacher teaching it in that way. And that's okay. This person who decided to leave, I don't judge them. I don't think negatively of them. If I see them at some point, I can smile and have love and kindness for this person because I don't have any expectation for that person to be any particular way. But understand when you go into a learning environment, you're going to hear things that are different than what you currently understand. And that's a very good thing because it gives your mind an opportunity to grow and learn and evolve and understand something that you currently don't understand. So if ever you're in a situation where you're hearing something that is different than what you currently understand, I would encourage you to ask questions and ask that person to help you to understand what it is that they're thinking. And at the end of the conversation, you might not agree with what it is that they're sharing, and that's okay. You're not going to agree with everybody. But if you can only have love and respect and kindness towards people that agree with you, then your mind is still lacking that wisdom to be able to let go of its cravings, desires, attachments. If you can only love and respect people who agree with you, then you can only love and respect yourself. Because there's only one person in the world who's ever going to agree with you 100% of the time, and it's yourself. Right? So you need to get to the point where you understand that people are going to have different views and different opinions. And that's one of the things that makes the world a wonderful place, is that we all do have different views and we all do have different opinions. And that's okay. It's okay that we have different views and it's okay that we speak differently. That's normal. But the problem is that the mind craves permanence. It wants everybody to do things a certain way. And in that situation, an individual will cause themselves to be frustrated or angry or irritated. So if you guys are ever interested in learning more about the teachings of the Buddha, to be able to learn how to be calm and stable and steady, where your mind is unshakable no matter what situation you're in, the Buddhist teachings will help you to do that. You can heal from what hurt you so that you never, ever need to hurt ever again. And if you'd like to come this afternoon at 1 o'clock, I'm going to be teaching an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha. On Sunday, tomorrow, we're going to be in chapter 20 of this first book, which is titled Animal to Human, the Evolution of Our Consciousness. This is where you're going to learn about how the human mind has evolved out of many animal existences. And that's why in the human state, the unenlightened mind functions very much like an animal. And you can evolve to being this better and better human being through training your mind and understanding the evolution of our consciousness. So we're going to talk about the 5 realms of existence tomorrow. We're going to talk about the beings in these realms. We're going to talk about the evolution of our consciousness. And then starting on Monday, I have a 5-day course where I'm going to teach the foundation of the path to enlightenment. It's from Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And as I shared with you, all these books and resources and classes and courses and retreats are all available to you at no cost. So if you're ever interested in learning and growing and understanding how to train your mind, the Buddhist teachings are here to help you. So thank you all for joining here at the temple and everyone online, and perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Okay, be well and have a lovely rest of your day. Sawadee ka.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.